Juan Soto recently inked a 15-year deal worth $765 million, making him the highest paid player in all of baseball. He's also coming off a career year where he hit a career best 41 home runs. And since the year 2021, he's got the second highest WAR out of any batter other than Aaron Judge. With all that said, I'm not taking him in the first round of my fantasy draft. Really? Really. And no, I'm not a spurned Yankees fan by any means. This has nothing to do with which team he's with versus which team he left. This is a matter of evaluating a player from a fantasy standpoint versus reality standpoint. There's no doubt Juan Soto is definitely one of the best players in all the bigs, probably top 5 objectively. But I think there are enough other players I would take before him. I'm going to bump him down, and let me tell you why. Now, first of all, for those who have not dug into the early ADP already here in, December, I get it. I mean, most of us aren't there yet. I've started to dig into it just a little bit, doing a couple of these slow drafts, draft and hold, and work my way into those rankings, but there's a lot that's still going to change. Soto was the first big domino to fall in free agency, and then we had some big trades, and there's still a lot left to be determined. But we do know that with Juan Soto, it almost doesn't matter where he plays, except for a couple of things. Now, I already mentioned he had a career-high 41 long balls last year, which is great. And look, he's still young enough. His power could continue to develop, but he's not a power hitter. That's not his calling card. There was, a lot of thought before the season that this could happen. He could finally have a little power surge being in Yankee Stadium. Well, he's not in Yankee Stadium anymore, and that is going to matter. Look, any way you slice it, this is a downgrade from park factor. Despite staying in New York, Yankee Stadium was the third best park factor for home runs for left-handed hitters specifically, and this is over a 3-year rolling window, according to Baseball Savant. Citi Field, the other New York stadium, is 21st. That's a massive drop from one of the best places to hit a home run for a lefty to one of the lower. And this could trickle down to the counting stats, not just home runs. Overall park factor, we're just talking about runs scored and offense. Yankees were third in runs scored last year. Yankee Stadium, one of the better parks just for offense in general. And overall park factor for Citi Field, 27th. So while Soto is coming off his best power season, he's still just 26 years old in his prime and now set to finish his career with a new team. The home runs are probably not going to be as good as last year. And in fact, I wouldn't be shocked if they take a massive dip. Look, when we talk specifically about fantasy value, I'm looking at this, first of all, should clarify, from a traditional Roto 5x5 category viewpoint. If it's a points league, forget it. It's different. You know what? Take Juan Soto in the top 5 picks. But if you're in a Roto league with categories, you're looking to win each category or get as much as you can out of each player in each category. Not every player, in fact, only just a couple of players are going to be 5 category studs. And, there's some guys who aren't going to help you at all in categories like steals or home runs, whichever the case is. Well, Juan Soto helps you in most categories, but he doesn't help you in steals really that much at all because only 7 steals last year. His career high is 12, which came the year before. He's not going to be asked to run. He never will be asked to run much. So you're going to kind of already take that category off of the table. It's not going to happen. He's more of a 4 category stud, a really good one at that. But I think a lot of people don't really realize as good of a hitter as Soto is, just a pure hitter, and again, great in terms of on-base percentage, but most leagues in fantasy, you're playing with average. He's not elite in terms of batting average. In fact, even though he had, again, probably his best overall season offensively last year, he hit .288, which is good, especially these days. There's really not that many guys who hit over 300 anymore. But again, this is not single-handedly carrying you in that category. The year before, when he wasn't with the Yankees, and again, he's not going to be with the Yankees this year, he hit .275. Before that, it was .242. Overall, and though you might anticipate that Juan Soto, if I had to ask you what his career batting average was, what would you guess? 300, close to 300? Maybe some people just assume it's over 300. It's not. Soto's been active in the majors since 2018. He's got a career .282 batting average. Again, it's good. It's definitely above the league average, but this is not what I would say an elite fantasy player in that category. So we're kind of striking out 2 categories already. And if the homers are going to drop to the 30s, maybe even low 30s, again, this would not shock me because the year before his 41 home run season, it was 35, which is solid. But now we're also talking about, again, that park factor maybe coming into play here. low 30s is very reasonable. And these days, again, that's good, but not elite. I won't argue against runs and RBIs. He'll definitely drive in plenty. He'll definitely score plenty, even if the Mets offense this year isn't as good as the Yankees last year. But then again, the Mets will have Soto this year, unlike last year where the Yankees did. But all told, when you stack up Soto against some other players who, whether they had amazing seasons last year or not, like a Julio Rodriguez, like a Corbin Carroll, who could conceivably help you in every category, I mean, I don't know if they have a compelling reason to take Soto over those guys, except for the fact he's been doing it longer. He's more consistent. I feel less likely that he's going to bust. And there is one train of thought is that the first round, you're going to play it safe, right? You're not looking for massive upside. You're just looking for a guy who's going to get you a really high floor, who's going to give you at least hopefully a return on your investment, not a big loss. I understand, right? You don't want to lose with your first round pick, but that line of thinking is what kind of made me worry about Aaron Judge last year because he's a guy who's missed so many games due to injury. He's missed extended chunks of time. It was a risky pick, and that was a mistake to avoid him. And I'll tell you what, before last year, honestly, Soto had been overdrafted. So according to Ron Chandler's baseball forecaster, which is pretty much the preseason Bible for fantasy baseball and every kind of baseball statistic, 5 years in a row, Juan Soto has been on average a top 12 pick, right? This is somebody that you can just trust in your first round. He's going to deliver for you. At least he's not going to let you down. So he's been a first rounder 5 years straight. And yet last year was the first time he actually finished as a top 12 pick in terms of actual value. He was 7th overall, largely due to the fact he had that big bump in home runs. So if we drop the home runs at least down to the mid 30s, again, low 30s to me seems realistic. Is he really delivering top 12 return on investment? And especially if you consider that in a lot of leagues, he's going to be drafted in the top 5. I don't know. To me, it just seems very risky. I will also say that very, very early drafters, not there's not that many already at this point of the season, but if you go to NFBC, which is a lot of high stakes players, analysts, and people who are already digging into this stuff before the new year even starts, he's not a top 5 pick. He is a first rounder. He's going 8th overall, but we're seeing on average, of course, Ohtani, Judge, Bobby Witt taken ahead of him, Jose Ramirez, who is Mr. Dependable and will steal you a lot of bases plus hit home runs. But then we're seeing Elly De La Cruz, who I understand has his own set of risks, but still has that upside. Gunnar Henderson, and even Kyle Tucker being taken ahead of Soto. So a lot of people in the know in the industry aren't taking him as a top 5 pick, and I wouldn't be surprised if that drops even a little bit lower. Personally, right now, again, rankings are going to be very flexible and change quite a bit from now until March. I got Soto 13th. I'm taking a guy like Freddie Freeman, who's also dependable, has been doing it much longer than Juan Soto, ahead of him because he will still, even though he did see a massive drop in his steals last year, I think if the ankle is good this year, he'll get the green light a little bit more. I'll take him. Mookie Betts, I mean, he should be way higher. I'm definitely going to take Betts, 5 category stud for sure, over Soto. I'll take a chance with Julio Rodriguez and Corbin Carroll. With Carroll seeing that power return and with Julio Rodriguez seeing the average at least become more than respectable. Where I draw the line is with pitchers, right? I'm not going to take a pitcher in the first round or over a guy like Soto, but that's a topic for a different video. So don't get me wrong here. What I'm not doing is calling Juan Soto a bust. I don't think he's somebody you should avoid, not somebody who's going to necessarily let you down as long as you don't draft him too soon. I need that upside. I want a guy who could clobber 50 home runs like a Judge, steal you 60 bases like an Elly De La Cruz, or is going to really help you in every category like a Mookie Betts. And while going to the Mets might turn out to be good for Soto himself, great for his family, I don't think it's going to be as great for his fantasy value as a lot of people realize. So now you know I'm not taking Soto first or even in the first round, but who should be first? I actually broke down all the options. Is it just Shohei Ohtani no matter what? Or should you really think a little bit more carefully about that selection? If you want to hear both sides of the story and which player you should consider taking if you have the first pick in your fantasy draft, check this out.